Our scholarship this morning takes us to the book of Daniel. And in so doing, we want to address the topic, the covenant commonwealth of Yisrael. The covenant commonwealth of Yisrael. Now, when we speak of Israel, most people will think of the people currently living in the land of Israel, and some have gone as far as to say these people represents Yah's people. The scriptures, the inspired word of Yah, teaches differently in that Israel is a group of people that respect the Messiah, Yeshua, accept him as their savior, and their lifestyle reflect the way they live. And so belief is a lifestyle. So we want to look at Israel in the sense that first Israel was one single man, the man Jacob, when he wrestled all night with the divine messenger, and the word says he prevailed over him, and his name was changed to Israel. Thereafter, Israel became a family. And so you can watch the evolution of Israel. He and his 12 sons became Israelites. Jacob and his 12 sons became the Israelites. And thereafter, Israel became a nation. And so it's growing, it's developing. That's following the Exodus, when the children of Israel left Egypt, and Yah brought them to Mount Sinai and gave them 10 words and told them how they should live. These were the children of Israel, even though the majority of them were born in Egypt. So the question emerged immediately that if they were born in Egypt, why were they not called Egyptians? So the point that is being made here, that you cannot use birth or geography to determine who Israel is. And that's what the world and the churches denominationally have done over a period of time. So what we're dealing with is the kingdom. In fact, in Bereshit chapter 19, verses 5 and 6, Yah had given these same children of Israel in Egypt, he had called them saying, I want you to be a kingdom. You've been an individual, you've been a family, and you've been a nation. I want a kingdom out of you now. And he said, if you obey me, you will be to me a kingdom of priests. They said, all that you have said, yeah, we will do. And in chapter 32 of the book of Exodus, Shemot, we saw that they started worshiping a golden calf. Now, when I talk about covenant people, we're talking about a nations of people. That's a commonwealth. A commonwealth is not a single nation of people. We have the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth, and it includes many different nations from the Caribbean and elsewhere. That's a commonwealth, and that's the Israel we're talking about this morning. Not biography, not geography, and not biology. We're dealing with the Israel of Yah found in Galatians 6 and verse 16. So we want to frame that through the book of Daniel. But before we go to the book of Daniel, I'd like for you to join me in the book of Metityahu. In the English, we call that Matthew. And if we take the chapter 24, and we will do a few verses here. So the word says, and Yeshua went out and departed from the temple, and his Talmudim, that his disciples, came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Yeshua said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat up on the Mount of Olives, the Talmudim came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the age? Now, this is some 2,000 years ago, and they were concerned enough to ask the question, what will be the signs of the times prior to your coming? What shall we look for? Now, the saliency of this question led to Yeshua answering it in chapter 24 and 25 of the book of Matthew. So it shows you how important the question was, and he gave them a lengthy answer that encapsulates everything that's going to happen. So join me now at verse 11 of the same passage of Matthew. And many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many. These false prophets, they come to your pulpits each week, and they deceive you because you do not have the common alacrity, willingness to read the word for yourself, even as the Bereans did. And because apostasy shall abound, the love of many shall grow cold. People will be in search of love, but they won't even find it in the church. That's sad. But that's the reality. He's answering his Talmudim, saying, these things will predominate the environment before I come. Look out for them. So when you see it and you see persons behaving this way and interacting in this way, you know that my coming is drawing nigh. But he says, he that endureth to the end, the very same will be saved. Verse 14, and the glad tidings of the kingdom shall be preached. Notice, not the glad tidings of the churches, not the denominational churches, not the institution, but of the kingdom, because he's dealing with a kingdom. That's what he's dealing with. So people from different nations will become part of this kingdom. We're dealing with the Commonwealth of Israel. He says the gospel of the kingdom must be preached. And so many people have been preaching a different gospel. They preach the crucifixion, which should be preached. They preach love. They preach all manner of things. Yeshua loved me, this I know. Why? The scriptures tell me so. All that must be preached. But the emphasis here is the kingdom. They preach baptism. But the point here is this, that the means by which we live have outdistanced the end for which we strive. What do I mean by that? Baptism and the other things that people preach, they are the means by which we get to the kingdom, not the end. The kingdom is the end. That's the whole essence of Yeshua coming to restore the kingdom and to bring us into the kingdom. So the point also is that you can be baptized and not be saved. So let's look at that, and I will try and emphasize that point for you. Turn with me to the book of Yohanan. Yohanan chapter 3. And the word says there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Yehudi, a ruler of the Jews. So we know he was born in Israel. So he has that claim. He's an Israelite. And the same came to Yeshua by night and said unto him, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher come from Elohim, for no man can do these miracles that thou doest except Elohim be with him. You can tell by the question he's asking that Nicodemus did not come to labrish. He did not come to susu. He came to ask a serious question because he was concerned about his own salvation. Yeshua then said to him, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born from above, he cannot see the kingdom of Yisrael. He cannot see the kingdom of who? Yahweh, not Israel. So understand this. This man is born in Israel. He would say, that's my birthright. I'm an Israelite. I speak Hebrew. I'm a PhD from the University of Jerusalem. That's what he would say. He has credential. And so he goes to the Messiah and asks this question. And Yeshua is saying, in essence, all that counts for nothing. You must be born spiritually in order to get that which comes physically. So when we look at Israel in the political sense and the geographical sense, we miss the mark. You can be baptized, be born in Israel, in Jerusalem, and still not be saved. So that's not what we're talking about. And it's curious enough, well, how can a man be born a second time? How can he enter into his mother's womb? He wants to know. He wants to know that. That which is born of the flesh is flesh. Your first birth counts for nothing. And that which is born of the spirit is spirit. Born of the Ruach, it's a different kind of birth. Now, this was a question of immigration. He wants to know, how do I get into this country, into this kingdom? Yeshua is letting him know, first you get a passport, which is baptism. That makes you eligible to travel to the country. But when you come to customs and we look at your luggage, your lifestyle, we will determine whether or not we let you through customs. So although you have a passport to travel to this kingdom, to this place, the kingdom of Yah, you're eligible because you've accepted Yeshua. It doesn't mean that you'll get through customs because you're carrying contraband. You're carrying sin, and you must repent and put those things away. Declare them through prayer and fasting. Declare them. And so many who attend church these days, they have no such assurance in that if you harbor sins in your life without repentance, you're carrying contraband that bars you from the kingdom of Yah. So today our subject is the covenant Commonwealth of Israel. So when Yeshua answered his Talmudim, come with me back to chapter 24 and we look at verse 15. It says, when he therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. It didn't say let the pastor understand. It didn't say let the elder understand, let the bishop understand, or the priest understand. He says, whoever it is that readeth this, let him understand. Because what he's alluding to here, he is alluding to Daniel chapter 9, which we will go to shortly. He says, when you see Jerusalem surrounded, because he's referring to what was going to happen in 70 AD when Titus came, the Roman general, later became Caesar, and destroyed the city. They couldn't see that. But he was pointing later on and saying, this is going to happen. You can focus up on the temple and its elaborate buildings, the architecture, which is people still do, the paintings, the beautiful walls, laden with golds. He says you've missed the mark, because in a short time, all this will come down. And so during this period of time, we're made to understand through history and through some of the writings of Josephus that some of the people heeded the warning of the Messiah, some of which were the Negro Alkebulan people, the Negro Israelites. They migrated to West Africa, to Benin, to Togo, Nigeria, Ghana, Guinea, all of those places. And you know what they did? Because their customs were so different from the native Alkebulan, they developed right there in the slave coast in Benin, the kingdom of Judah. Why would a group of people, Negroes, so-called, go to West Africa and establish a kingdom of Judah? Because they're Judah. That's why. And when you look at the European maps in the 17th and 18th centuries, they clearly state that this is the kingdom of Judah. And it was the kingdom of Judah because the people who developed it were from Judah. Many of them are Shemitic people, not Hamitic. The natives African, they are Hamitic, but not necessarily Shemitic. And so when Yah says in Amos 9 and 7 that, are you not the same to me, O Israel, as the Ethiopian? You better understand what he's saying. Because what he's saying is that when Jacob blessed the two sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, and put his name on them, they became Israel. And so Israel would become ultimately a nation of peoples. They will become many nations. That's Israel. And then we read, as we did this morning in the book of Tehillim, that's the book of Psalm in chapter 7, when a Benjamite Cushite, or a Cushite Benjamite, spoke against David, and David was complaining to Yah about this man. Now ask yourself the question, how could he be a Cushite and a Benjamite at the same time? A Cushite, we know, is a descendant of Cush, even as Nimrod was. But he's also a Benjamite, meaning that he is from the southern tribe, the tribe of Judah, from the house of David. So we see throughout the scriptures that these people, early people, they carry the same hue, color as the Messiah, who had bronze skin. So the first thing in that we need to understand is this, that black is not a mere color. It is an essence which all other colors derive their hue. When you mix the primary colors, red, yellow, blue, you get black. So black is an essence. So when someone looks at you and see you carry that beautiful bronze skin, they know that you come straight out of the potter's hand, the creator's hand, because he said he took the clay from that region and he made yourself. And so, again, I'm just emphasizing or re-emphasizing the point that when I'm talking about Israel, I am not talking about today's geography. I'm talking about the scriptural definition of Israel. So come now with me to the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 9. You well know that around about 605, Daniel, like so many other young men, in his teen, was taken captive to Babylon. And so by this time, because he is now an older man, served through the administration of Nebuchadnezzar. Now we have the fall of Babylon, and Cyrus had dredged through the Euphrates River, and now we have a different ruler. So he's an older man. And he realizes that the time period that Yah had given for the children of Israel to remain in Babylon, in captivity, is almost up. So he's praying for the prophecy to be fulfilled. Notice something, when Yah says something, it forms the basis of the prophecy. The Bible says we ought to pray for its fulfillment. Sometimes we pray against it. He taught the disciples, pray this way, let thy will be done on earth that is in heaven. So some of the things we see playing out in politics and economics that are very harsh conditions, Yah says, pray for its fulfillment. So Daniel here, come with me to chapter 9, verse 1. In the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. This is a teenager who went into captivity. He's now an old man, and he's still studying the scriptures. He's reading from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 25. That's where he's reading. Let's go there for a little while and come back to Daniel chapter 9. Come with me to Jeremiah chapter 25, and we'll read verses 11 and 12. And this old land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And it shall come to pass, when 70 years are accomplished, that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, said Yahweh, for the iniquity and the land of the Chaldeans, and will make it perpetual desolations. So he was reading this, and so he realizes that the time was almost up. So he's praying, and he's saying, yeah, we have sinned. Verse 3, and I set my face unto Yahweh Elohim to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. And I prayed unto Yahweh my Elohim, and made my confession, and said, O Yahweh, the great and the awe-inspiring Elohim, keeping the covenant and mercy to them that love him, and to them that keep his commandment. Did you hear me? We're dealing with covenant. You cannot say that you are in covenant with Yah when you are willingly violating his commandment and saying that you are his people. You can't do that. Verse 5, we have sinned and have committed iniquity. He held himself accountable in this process, and have done wickedly and have rebelled, even by departing from the precepts and from the judgment. We've departed from all that you have said we should do. They were told that when you go into the land, you would keep the land Sabbath. Every 6 years you will plow and you will reap the land, but in the 7th year, the land must rest. So for over that period of 490 years, they missed it several times. So Yah says, because you have not allowed the land to rest, you have chased money. You have developed that mentality where money and possessions have become more important to you than my word. I'm going to send you to Babylon to spend 70 years. So Daniel knew this. And so he's praying because he knows emancipation time is almost here. And the word says while he was praying, come with me, verse 20 of the same passage. And while I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people, Israel, and presenting my supplication before Yahweh, my Elohim, from the holy mountain of my Elohim, yea, I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in a vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, and touched me about the time of the evening oblation. Now, the evening oblation would have been about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And here he's referring to what happened in chapter 8, in particularly verse 14, the word was told that the temple would be cleansed, the cleansing of the temple. 2300-day prophecy, we call that. So we've got to understand that this is very important. And Daniel is praying, and Gabriel came to him. Verse 23 says, "At the beginning of thy supplications, the commandment came forth, and I am come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved, therefore understand the matter and consider the vision." 70 weeks, these are weeks of years, are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to restrain transgression and to make an end of sin offering and to make atonement for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to complete the prophetic vision and to anoint the most holy place. Let's hold it there and let's examine this verse again, verse 24. So these are the things that will happen during this period of time. It says 70 weeks are determined upon the people, Daniel's people. Now again, it's important that you know who Daniel's people are. Daniel's people are those who are covenanted by way of faith in Yeshua, not by way of physical birth. And he's saying that the 70 weeks, during that period of time, what will happen? They will restrain from transgression, as that happened. We just had a war in Gaza where people are crying out, some are saying genocide has been committed. People have died. The 70 weeks are determined to cleanse the place, to make sure that righteousness is practiced. It says sin offerings will stop being offered. We know that plans are on the way to rebuild a new temple to reintroduce the animal sacrifice, which will in effect challenge the work that Yeshua had done, because he being the ultimate sacrifice, we don't need to do that again. And it says, and to make atonement for iniquity. And so my question to you this morning, for those of you who teach that all this has been fulfilled, atonement made? When was the atonement made? And by whom was the atonement made? The atonement, as you know, is the work of a priest. Only a priest can make the atonement. As you know, on the 10th day of the 7th month, the day of Yom Kippur, the priest would go in and make atonement for Israel. But some will say, but that Yeshua, he made the atonement of Calvary. At Calvary, he was not a priest. In Hebrews 8 and verse 4, the word says, while he was on earth, Yeshua was not a priest. So who made the atonement? The sinner was the one who slew the victim at Calvary. So the atonement could only have been completed after his ascension. So when we read in Daniel 8 and verse 14 that the temple was to be cleansed, and some have gone on to say that this happened on the 22nd of October in 1844, we will come to that. Because we are using scriptures and ask you to examine them with us. Gabriel here is giving instructions. 70 weeks are determined for your people to put away all sins and for atonement to be made. So when we come to verse 24, again, it says 70 weeks of years are determined upon the people and upon the whole city, and to restrain transgression, and to make an end of sin offerings, and to make atonement for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. Has that happened? Can you now look in geographical Israel over there in the Middle East and say that they have everlasting righteousness? Can you really say that? Everlasting righteousness will only come when the Messiah himself arrives. And he says, the prophetic visions and to anoint the holy place. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks and 60, and 2 weeks the street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublesome time. We're deep into theology this morning. So the important thing for us to understand in this, when did this commence? When was the date given? When was the command given, the decree given to rebuild Jerusalem? Some say the starting point of that is 457. Is that what they say? They said the starting point came under Ahasuerus when he made the decree that we find in the book of Esther, and the 2300 days that is cited in Daniel 8 and verse 14, counting forward, takes us to the 22nd of October in 1844, when the temple in heaven was cleansed. Now, let's discuss that. When you look back into history, this date was given to that group of people by the Korite Jews, people who believe in the Tanakh, and their calendar is very much different from the rabbinic calendar. And when you go back into history, you find out the Day of Atonement in 1844 was not the 22nd of October, 1844, but it was the 23rd of September. That's a rabbinic calendar. So we have two different dates. Which one is correct? The point is, those who say that the 22nd of October in 1844 was when Yeshua moved from the holy place to the most holy place. I am not challenging the fact that he moved, but the date. If he moved in September and you think it's October, even if he had come as you thought he would, you would have missed him by a whole month. You would have missed him. So the thing is this. Daniel says that the first 7 weeks, 49 years, is such that would lead to the Messiah who would come later on. And then we count another 62 weeks. 62 and 7 is 69. So the Messiah was cut off in the 69th week. Remember, 70 weeks were determined. And it's the Messiah who is doing all of this. It's the Messiah who is making the atonement for Israel. If he is cut off in the 69th week, then it suggests that 1 week is left. That means the 70 week was not contiguous. It was never contiguous. There is a recess. There is a gap. And that has brought controversy to the scholars and the theologians. Some say when Yeshua died in the middle of the week, they say he died in the middle of the 70th week. That's what they say. And therefore, 3.5 years that led to the stoning of Stephen, all of this 70th week was complete. And let's look at it from another perspective. Because those who hold dogmatically to the view that it started in the time of Ezra and it leads to 1844, they may have missed the point. In the sense that, what if it started some other time? What if? You see, Daniel was praying about 538 BC. He was, as I indicated, he was an old man. And he was praying because he knew that the time was almost up. He knew that. And so he was clear in his mind that liberation was coming. And the people must be prepared to go home and rebuild and do all that needs to be done as was told to them by Cyrus. And then Darius. So there were like 3 different decrees given in the book of Ezra. We have one from Cyrus, and we have others from Ahasuerus. We have in chapter 6 of Ezra, and we have in chapter 7. Let's deal with chapter 7. Because it says, now after these things, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, the son of Seraiah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah, the son of Shalom, the son of Zadok, the son of Ahitub, the son of Amariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Meroth, the son of Zariah, the son of Uzi, the son of Bukai. And he gives you a whole history of his family. And so people read this and they say the commandment was given to rebuild Jerusalem in 457 BC. Now, let's read a little bit more. It says that, verse 11, now this is the copy of the letter that King Artaxerxes gave unto Ezra the priest, the scribe, even a scribe of the words of the commandments of Yahweh and his statutes to Israel. Artaxerxes, king of kings, unto Ezra the priest, a scribe of the law of Eloah, the heaven, the perfect peace, and at such time I make a decree that all they of the people of Israel and of the priests and the Levites in my realm, which are minded of their own free will to go up to Jerusalem, go with thee, for as much as thou sent as a king and of his 7 counselors and inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem, according to the law of Eloah, which is in thine hand. And he goes on to tell him, and all the silver and the gold that thou canst find in all the province of Babylon, and the freewill offering of the people, and the priests offering willingly for the house of the Hallower, which is in Jerusalem. Now, as you read this through, the decree speaks mostly of the temple. It's relevant mostly to the temple. We see nothing concretely saying rebuild Jerusalem. Unless we're saying in 457 BC, it was a eclectic decree that includes the rebuilding of Jerusalem and the temple, but it's not that clear as you read it. It's dealing with the rebuilding of the house. That's what it says. Go and build the house. So when we look now, come with me to the book of Nehemiah or Nehemyah. And we will take chapter 2. So as we read chapter 6 of Ezra and we read chapter 7 of Ezra, we don't see the concretization of Jerusalem, any decree to rebuild Jerusalem. We don't see that. If it's there, it's implicit in the decree. But when we come to Nehemiah chapter 2, it says, "And it came to pass in the month Nisan, in the 28th year of Artaxerxes the king, that wine was before the king, and I took up the wine and gave it unto the king. Now I had not been before a time sad in his countenance." That's not how I behaved before the king before, but I was concerned. Wherefore the king said unto me, "Why is thy countenance sad, seeing thou art not sick? This is nothing else but sorrow of heart." Then I was very sore afraid when the king said that. And he said unto the king, "Let the king live forever. Why should not my countenance be sad when the city, see? So in Nehemiah's time, the city of Jerusalem was still not built. The place of my father's sepulchre layeth waste, and the gates thereof are consumed with fire." Then the king said unto me, "For what dost thou make request?" What is it you want, Nehemiah? And he asked the king for a letter so that he can go and build the walls of Jerusalem. Verse 6, "And the king said unto me, the queen," that's Esther, also sitting by him, "For how long shall thy journey be, and when wilt thou return?" So it pleased the king to send me, and I set him a time. I told him. Moreover, I said unto the king, "If it please the king, let letters be given me to the governors beyond the river, that they may convey me over till I come unto Judah." Verse 8, "And a letter unto Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams for the gates of the palace, which appertaineth to the house, and for the wall of the city, and for the house that I shall enter into." And the king granted me according to the good hand of my Elohim upon me. So we see clearly here that in terms of the rebuilding of Jerusalem, the walls and so forth, that decree went out in the time of Nehemiah, which was a 13-year difference. This is in 445 BC, not 457 BC. So we're going to have to reconcile it, or the scholars will have to do that. Because if the starting date was not 457 BC, as some have concluded, but it was 445 BC, then what then do you do with the date of 22nd of October, 1844? It's 13 years out. You have a problem. And so the problem would then be your theology. Come with me to 2 Chronicles, and we will do it chapter 36, reading from verse 21. "And them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon, where they were servants to him and his sons until the reign of the kingdom of Persia, to fulfill the word of Yahweh by mouth of Jeremiah, until the land has enjoyed her Sabbaths. For as long as she lay desolate, she kept Sabbath to fulfill 60 and 10 years. So the time was up, and the people have gone home. The walls are still down. Jerusalem is not rebuilt. The temple has been worked on, but not the walls. Nehemyah is the one who received letters to rebuild the wall. We don't see that in Ezra chapter 6 or Ezra chapter 7. Everything in those passages relate mostly to the rebuilding of the temple. And so we ask ourselves the question, is 457 BC the date of commencement, or is it 445 BC? Anyhow, whatever the conclusion is, as you go through your study, come with me to Ephesians chapter 2 as we address a topic more saliently this morning, the covenant, Commonwealth, people of Israel. Ephesians. And you have he quickened who were dead in trespass and sins, wherein in the time past you walked according to the curse of the world, according to the prince of power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience, among whom also we all had our deportment in times past, in the lust of the flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh, of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. So the writer here, Shaul, is letting us know that there was a time gone past when these people here did not know the Messiah. They were living according to the principles of the world, and Yahweh, who is rich in mercy, for his great love wherewith he loved us, even when we were dead in sins, hath quickened us together with the Messiah. He sent the Messiah, and by his grace, those of us who accept him and live according to his laws, his precepts, and his commandments, we are the ones who become the covenant, commonwealth of Israel. It doesn't matter where you live. It says, verse 11, wherefore remember that he being in the past heathens, you are heathens, you were Gentiles in the flesh, you were called uncircumcised by those who were called circumcised in the flesh, made by hands, that at that time ye were without the Messiah. You did not know the Messiah. You didn't get baptized. You were not born from above, being aliens from the Commonwealth. You did not have a passport. You did not have a visa. You were carrying contraband. You were living in the world. That's what he's saying. And so in chapter 3 of Yohanan, Yeshua is letting the man, Nicodemus, who was born in Israel, you're just like these people. You were born in Israel, but you don't have a passport to go to the kingdom. So he's saying, let me read that in verse 12, that at that time he were without the Messiah. You were without Mashiach, being aliens from the Commonwealth of Israel. Did you see that? You were aliens from the Commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope. Usually Jesse Jackson would say, keep hope alive. You can only keep hope alive if you accept Yeshua. And without Elohim in the world. But now, in Yeshua, the Messiah, you who formerly were far off are made nigh by the blood of the Messiah. For he is our peace, who hath made both one and hath broken down the middle wall of the partition between us, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, for to make himself of twain one new man, so making peace. Let's hold it there. He made one new man. What does he mean? When he had made Adam, he made one man, and he put all the seeds of men in that one man. We're all part of Adam. So when Adam sinned, sin became a genetic transmission in that even though many of us had not yet been born, we were complicit by way of genetics in his sin. And so we were born sinful because Adam carried the germ seed of all human beings. So each of us, as we were born, we sinned. But now, he has made one new man, Yeshua. And by adoption, we become children of Yah. That's what this passage is teaching us. Now, therefore, you are no longer strangers. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. You are no longer a stranger. You are not a Baptist. When he talks about a church, he's not talking about a local church. He's talking about the assembly that is in Hebrews 12 and verse 23, the general assembly. That's what he's saying. He said, now, therefore, you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of Yahweh, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles, not on your preacher, not on the Reformation. You're built upon the foundation of the apostle and the prophet, Yeshua the Messiah, himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom all the buildings fitly framed together groweth into a holy temple, into Elohim, in whom ye are all builded together for the habitation of Elohim through the Spirit. So you're all Israelite. Doesn't matter where you come from. Don't say you're a Baptist or you're Pentecostal or you're Seventh-day Adventist. He said, no. He said, once upon a time, perhaps you were that. The whole idea of the church was to bring people to the destination of Israel. I know there are preachers who distinguish the church from Israel, but the Commonwealth of Israel is all nation, all churches coming to Israel. And when you come to Israel, not geographical Israel, when you come to spiritual Israel, you put away all things that don't resemble what the Messiah is teaching. So come now with me, let me consolidate that point in Tehillim chapter 87. Tehillim, that's Psalm chapter 87. And the word here says that it doesn't matter where you and I were born. Its foundation is in the holy mountains. So the question could be asked, who then will ascend to this mountain? Only those who have clean hands and pure in heart. Verse 2, Yahweh loveth the gates of Zion more than all the dwellings of Jacob. Glorious things are spoken of the city of Elohim, Selah. I will make mention of Rahab. Rahab is a Canaanite harlot. She is a descendant of Ham. But he says, I will make mention of Rahab. Why? Because she had faith. She hid the spies. She was not an Israelite, but now because she accepted the Messiah, she becomes an Israelite. So he says, I will mention her and Babylon to them that know me. Did you hear me? It's those who know him, not those who are born in Israel, but who are born in Zion, regardless of where you live. Behold, Philistia and Tyre with Ethiopia, this man was born there. But of Zion it shall be said, every member was born in her, and the highest himself shall establish thee. Yahweh shall count when he taketh the census of the people, that this man was born there, as well the singers as the players on instruments shall be there. All thy springs are in thee. The essence of our study this morning is that whether you were born in the Caribbean, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, wherever you were born, if you accept Yeshua and all his teachings, you become by adoption an Israelite, and then you have more rights than those who were born physically in the land, who do not possess these rights. You have more rights because you are the Israelites of Galatians 6:16, the Israelites of Yah. So when we focus up on the geographical location of Israel, we miss the very point. No, the Israel of Yah, the people, are those people who were born elsewhere except Yeshua as the only creator and the only one who brings salvation, because salvation is not given in any other name except him. Acts 4:12. And these are the people, ultimately, according to 1 Thessalonians 4 and verse 17, who will meet him in the air and be transported to there. Zechariah says, when he comes, his feet will touch the ground. Zechariah chapter 14. And we will go with him. This is the Israel that the church should be focusing. But the church has been preaching different things and not the gospel of the kingdom. May we understand it and make the necessary changes that needs to be made, because Yah is great and there is none like him. In Yeshua's name I pray. Hallelujah.